All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for coming. I'm happy to be here with Minister of Affordability and Utilities, Nathan Neudorf, Parliamentary Secretary, Chantelle, and George Christodidis, who is the President and CEO of the Canadian Nuclear Association, to share what's next for nuclear energy in Alberta. Alberta is growing faster than any other province in Canada, and we don't see that slowing down anytime soon. We're also Canada's economic engine, with huge ambitions for growth and expansion heading into the future. And all this growth means we need more electricity to support it. Currently, the majority of our energy production comes from natural gas, a stable power source. But as our economy expands, particularly in the energy, agriculture, and technology sectors, we need to consider all types of generation technology to power our province. For years, our government has been eyeing nuclear power as just the thing we need to expand our energy capacity. And we're not alone in this. Governments around the world are giving nuclear energy some long overdue consideration. Our own government has signed agreements with Saskatchewan and Ontario to cooperate on developing nuclear energy and supply chains. We're also exploring what's possible with small modular reactors, cutting-edge technology that can be built faster and for lower startup costs than conventional plants. Frankly, there's a lot to like about nuclear. It's efficient, low cost in the long run, and long-lasting. Now, those are points in its favor, but two qualities in particular set nuclear apart from other energy sources. It's almost completely emissions-free, and it's incredibly reliable, producing abundant baseload power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That means we'd be able to expand our economy with dependable, scalable, non-emitting power, and it's hard to argue with a proposition like that. We see tremendous potential for nuclear to secure Alberta's energy supply for the long term, to fuel our ambitions for our key industries, to help us reach our goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, to share economic benefits with Indigenous communities, and make the most of our resources and technical expertise gained from decades of energy production. We see the potential for nuclear energy to transform Alberta, to provide good jobs and prosperity, and set us on a solid footing for the future. And we want to deliver on that potential. But we also recognize that nuclear energy carries with it a certain amount of baggage from incidents in the past. We know it's a polarizing topic that stirs up emotions, and we want to proceed thoughtfully. We want to give Albertans a say in developing the path forward. We want to know what people think, what opportunities they see, and what concerns they may have. So today I'm happy to announce the creation of a panel that will engage with people across Alberta, including Indigenous communities, industry experts, and other community partners to explore the potential for a nuclear energy industry in Alberta. The panel was appointed by Minister Neudorf, and it will be chaired by Parliamentary Secretary Jonge. Our expert panelists are well respected in government, academia, industry, and Indigenous government. The panel will engage with different stakeholder groups in Alberta, analyze the results of an online survey, and compile a report based on its findings. Our intention is to ensure Albertans have their say as we consider this transformational energy source for our province. The panel's report will inform our approach to a potential nuclear energy industry in Alberta, and I look forward to seeing it. And I'd like to thank every member of the panel for stepping up for this important task. And now I'd also like to invite Minister Neudorf to share more about the process.
Well, thank you, Premier. Appreciate that. And good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today. As you heard from the Premier, nuclear energy holds a lot of promise. Beyond being an incredibly reliable source of emissions-free electricity that can strengthen our power grid to meet rising electricity demands, I'm personally most excited about the opportunity nuclear energy presents when it comes to life-saving medical isotopes to support advanced care in cancer. This is already being explored and happening in Ontario, and I think that really gets to the heart of why we're launching a nuclear energy engagement, to hear directly from people across Alberta, families and communities, and those who would benefit the most. We're taking a phased approach with this engagement, and phase one is now underway. Our government has already reached out to Indigenous communities across the province to determine the best approach for meaningful engagement as we move through this process. Now we want to hear from people across the province and understand what your questions and concerns may be about nuclear energy development and where the opportunities lie for nuclear to support both our energy and economic growth and development. Today, we're launching the Nuclear Energy Engagement Survey, which will be open until September the 25th. The results of this survey will help inform future engagement activities that will take place over the course of the next year. These, of course, will be led by the Nuclear Energy Engagement and Advisory Panel, which we will use the information and feedback gathered to put together recommendations on how we can enable nuclear energy within our province and ultimately help us create a nuclear energy roadmap. I want to thank Parliamentary Secretary de Jonge for chairing this panel and all 5 panel members for taking the crucial task of helping us shape this energy future. Each of the panel members are well-respected leaders within their fields, and we're so pleased that their expertise and experience will help guide this process. We also need to hear from energy industry professionals, technical experts, and other community partners. That's why we've published a request for information to better understand the challenges and opportunities of establishing a nuclear energy industry here in Alberta, including how we might advance nuclear energy in Alberta's unique competitive electricity market. The survey, the request for information, and additional educational materials can be found online at alberta.ca/nuclear-energy-engagement. In our next phase, we will be engaging with Indigenous communities and organizations through a variety of channels, including in-person sessions, and provide more opportunities for the public and industry to share their input. We'll have more details to share about these and other engagement activities in the coming months, and we believe in nuclear energy's potential. And that one of the most important responsible things that we can do right now for Alberta's energy future is to begin the conversation with Albertans. I hope people across the province take this opportunity to have their say so that we can move forward together. Thank you very much, and I'll now ask Parliamentary Secretary Chantelle de Jonge to provide more details on the panel themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Minister Neudorf. I'm so honored to be named chair of the Nuclear Engagement Panel and to lead an impressive roster of experts in engaging with people across Alberta on the potential for nuclear energy development. The panel includes Darren Billis, Senior VP of Western Canada for Council Public Affairs, Tim Boston, Principal at Boston Egg Strategies, Inc., Stephen Buffalo, President and CEO of the Indian Resource Council of Canada, Dr. Rudiger Churning, Fellow on Nuclear Law and Policy at the University of Calgary, and Professor Harry Vredenberg, Professor of Strategy and Global Management at the University of Calgary. Each one of these members brings unique expertise and experience, and I look forward to working with each one of them in the months ahead as we embark on an important task of exploring how nuclear energy might power a better, brighter future for our province. And I'm sure I speak for the entire panel when I say we are very excited to get started on advancing the conversation on nuclear energy. I hope everyone will take the time to participate in the survey and the nuclear engagement process. And I would now like to invite Jonge Christidis, President and CEO of the Canadian Nuclear Association, to share a few words.
Well, what a special day. And thank you very much for the opportunity. First of all, I'd like to thank Premier Smith, Minister Neudorf, and Parliamentary Secretary for this amazing announcement that is so amazing, not only for Albertans, but also for the Canadian nuclear industry and beyond. And quite frankly, having been born and raised in Saskatchewan, it's always great to be in Western Canada. There's a certain air about Western Canada, so it's always great to be here. It's a privilege to be here today as Alberta takes an important next step in terms of engaging this conversation and taking a look at nuclear technologies from a perspective of what it might mean for Albertans, from an energy security perspective, resource development perspective, but also innovation. And the minister referred to isotopes, and those are very important components of what the nuclear industry represents and provides. From our perspective, the Canadian Nuclear Industry Association, the nuclear industry is a great enabler of jobs, high-skilled trade jobs that are about 89,000 across Canada at the moment, and is a wonderful opportunity for Albertans to consider as they look at their future ahead. What excites me here is about the alignment of Alberta's strengths in terms of being an energy province and the opportunity that the nuclear industry represents here. So really this conversation, Albertans, led by Albertans, for Albertans, is going to be really informative for all of us. And we are here as a resource, of course, for information across our industry. We obviously represent the nuclear industry, the companies from large nuclear technologies, smaller nuclear technologies, the entire supply chain, and we have a lot of information in terms of enabling this conversation. And our experience, whether it's in Ontario, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, and now in Alberta, is here for you to access anytime. So again, with that, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I congratulate the government of Alberta and the people of Alberta taking this next step. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers. We'll now head into our media Q&A. We'll start off with questions here at the room. There's just a mic at the back there. We'll be taking one question, one follow-up, and just a reminder to media to state your name and outlet before asking your question. Go ahead first with the mic.
Hi there, Acton Clark in CBC Calgary. This is for the Premier, please. Premier, the City of Calgary has sent a $10 million bill to the provincial government to recover administrative costs for collecting the education tax requisition. Will you be paying that bill?
Well, I can tell you it started a good conversation about the cost effectiveness of having 320 tax collection bureaus at municipal level. I did raise it at the Alberta Municipalities Association, asking the question of whether or not this is an area that the provincial government should take over, if we should do centralized tax collection and then be able to rebate back to the municipalities rather than the reverse. And so, I'm quite happy to start that conversation. If they feel like the cost of tax collection has become too onerous, I'll see how it goes. This has been the way it's been done for the past 30 years, but we're going through the Alberta Next panel to have a similar conversation at the federal level of whether or not the reverse should be true. If we would get some better accountability and alignment if we collected all of our provincial taxes here rather than have the federal government collect on our behalf. So I'm happy to add that to the consultation list.
No follow.
Next at the mic.
Hi, Laurence Tachot, Radio-Canada, for you, Premier Smith. This announcement, I'm not sure I understand the next step. Are we looking at nuclear plant, small reactor modular? It's quite vague for me. What's the next step?
I think all of the above. One of the things that we often find is that in industry circles and academic circles, we have a robust conversation about certain ideas, about adding nuclear power to our power grid. And then if a decision was made, the public would say, wait a minute, where did that come from? So we want to make sure that people understand we are actively talking about adding nuclear to our power grid, both small modular as well as large, and we want to get their feedback on it. There is already a very active group in the Peace River area, a consortium of municipalities that have been advocating for a nuclear plant to be sited in their area. I know that there's at least another couple of municipalities who've expressed an interest as well, including Lloydminster. And so now that we've started this, we'll find out where those areas are, where they would like to host an installation like this, the uses for it, as well as some of the concerns people have. So all of the above.
Thank you. Follow-up would be for Minister Neudorf. I can't see. Hi. Can you provide a bit more of a timeline? So we'll hear back in the next couple months, you said, but then when are we looking at maybe starting construction, building nuclear? What's the timeline Albertans can expect?
Great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, we're taking the next year to talk to Albertans. There's an obligation for government of Alberta to consult with our First Nations as to how they would feel about this type of project proceeding. We still have an entire legislative and regulatory framework to establish to allow for this novel as a new type of generation to happen within the province of Alberta. And then because of our private market, it would take some time for private proponents to fully build out and then connect to our grid. So the whole of it could take several years. As the Premier mentioned, there's a number of individual advocates and stakeholders beginning that journey. But between environmental assessments and other approvals, both federal and yet to be established provincially, it could be over the next 5 to 10 years before we actually have operational. And again, that's assuming Albertans are in favor of proceeding with this, which is what we're starting with here today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi there, Aaron with Livewire Calgary. Question for the Premier, please. Premier, are we likely to see a nuclear plant in Calgary or Edmonton?
That would would very much be, I think, a decision of NMAX and certainly NMAX in Calgary, because NMAX is vertically integrated, so they do generation as well as transmission, distribution, and retail. EPCOR has a bit of a different arrangement. They have partnered with Capital Power for their power needs. So we would, at the moment, we're going in with the idea that the private market would be the proponent on this. We have a good relationship with OPG in Ontario. They, of course, have the CANDU reactors, have deployed those, and have some expertise in assisting us in thinking through how we might be able to establish it here. We've got a good relationship with Premier Scott Moe. They have had this conversation in the past. New Brunswick is another place that also already has nuclear. I think Darlington is the first place where they're going to be rolling out the small modular reactors. But remember, I mean, Ontario, I think 60% of their power comes from nuclear. It's just, it's never been in Alberta. We've always had coal, and then when we came off coal, we became reliant on natural gas. And so now we're just having a conversation about, are there other baseload power sources that we can add to our grid?
And Fall Premier, is there conversations ongoing about maybe using nuclear power to do things like turn natural gas into blue hydrogen for export?
I think that, you know, whenever you bring new power on, it can be used for any number of things. And we've got natural gas powered plants with carbon capture that are talking about creating hydrogen. That's what the Lindy project in the industrial heartland is about, and that is what the Air Products project is about as well, that they're doing carbon capture there. So they're able to do that with natural gas. They're not needing to do nuclear. I suppose it's possible to do. I think nuclear is particularly attractive now to AI data centers, now that we're seeing such an enormous demand. And of course, with AI data centers, they want to have as low emissions footprint as possible. And so being able to bring on a project of substantial size with the kind of substantial proposals we're hearing from AI data centers, I would suspect that that would be one of the largest future uses.
And we'll take one more from the mic, and then we're going to hit the phones.
Hi,
go ahead.
Premier Matscase, Canadian Press. On your COVID vaccination campaign, critics say that this is making the COVID shot less accessible, it's making it less affordable, effectively sabotaging your own campaign to get people vaccinated with the COVID shot. Thinking about a family of 5, that would cost $500 to get the full family vaccinated. So how would you respond to that criticism that you are sabotaging your COVID vaccine campaign?
Well, my starting point is the federal government stopped funding it. They funded it for 3 years, and they stopped funding it this year. And so then we had to assess whether we could take on the full cost of the program as it had been designed by the federal government. And if we had done it exactly the way they did, with the amount of spoilage that occurred, it would cost us about $135 million. And so we know that that is a huge amount of money to try to take out of our current health budget. And there'd be other things that would be sacrificed. Knee and hip replacements, being able to do other surgeries in hospitals, and we're just not prepared to do that. Especially since the second part is that as people have become exposed to COVID, as people have had multiple shots and also multiple infections, we're seeing that the rate of vaccinations going down. It was only 13.9% last year. So the majority, 86% of Albertans have already chosen not to get vaccinated. So we have to find a way to match the doses with those who want them and those who need them. And so we put forward the list of those who are going to be eligible. And if you look at over age 65, for instance, it's about 87% of people over age 65 will be eligible on the basis of one of their pre-existing conditions, either because they are already on a senior's benefit, is because they're living in congregate care, if they're receiving home care, any of these conditions, cancer, cerebral vascular disease, chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease, chronic lung disease, cystic fibrosis, diabetes, disabilities, heart conditions, HIV, mental health conditions, obesity, pregnancy or a recent pregnancy, primary immunodeficiency diseases, solid organ or blood stem cell transplant, tuberculosis, use of cortisol, steroids, or other immunosuppressive medications, a very long list. And so we think that we've covered and given priority to those on the list who have those pre-existing conditions of any age over 6 months, and anyone else beyond that who wants to get it will be able to pay as of October 20th. So I would say people should just look at the list, see if they're one of those that qualify, make their own assessment with their doctor if they feel that they need that extra measure of protection, and then we'll just see how the program rolls out, and hopefully we'll have less waste than we've had in previous years. The problem with the packaging of this particular type of vaccine comes in packages of 10 that has to be used within 24 hours of opening. And so we ended up in previous years throwing out 54% of it. And we're just not going to do that anymore. So we have to do it a better way, and we hope that this will be it.
Okay. Something you said this week on your show was that you had sort of learned from the lessons from the Tylenol situation. Are Albertans who aren't eligible on the hook because of that Tylenol situation?
Well, Albertans they want us to make sure that we're not wasting money. And I think that's a very reasonable thing for Albertans to ask. And so as we were talking about where is the biggest waste in the use of pharmaceuticals and these kind of products, this was a glaring example that was standing out, that we're throwing away more than half of the batches. There's lots of other types of products that are shelf stable, that the virus doesn't mutate that much, so you're able to get one batch and it can last you for a while, or you're able to store it at a reasonable temperature, or you don't need to store it at a controlled temperature at all. So this is an unusual product that has an unusually high level of disposal and spoilage, and so we've got to manage it differently.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we're going to take a few from the phones. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
Yes, the first one is from Megan Podkins from Financial Post. Your line is now open.
Hi, I suppose this question is a bit more from the Premier, because I'm just, it's a bit more big picture. I'm curious if you see, is it more likely in your mind that we're going to see industrial SMR proposals coming forward, or are you looking to see grid-scale nuclear projects coming forward first? I'm wondering which of those two you see a priority. And if it is industrial, who pays for that? What role does industry have in paying for that? What role does government have in funding that?
Well, I can also let Minister Neudorf respond to that. I can give you my first indications on that. Because we have a power market where generation is privatized, we would anticipate that the private sector would pay for it. And then whether through it was long-term power purchase agreements or just the fluctuation of the market on the spot market on a day-to-day basis, that they would be paying for it over time. That would be one of the things that we would anticipate. For small modular, the places it seems to make the most sense, especially if you're able to use it for both power and heat for steam, it may well be that our oil sands projects are the place it would be deployed. I think they can be deployed at the micro level, like under 5 megawatts, all the way up to sort of like 15 or 25 megawatts. And so you'd have to have significant enough power to make it worthwhile. And I think if you can use the combination of both of those, it probably makes the most sense. And what we've seen in the past is that the oil sands companies have paid to put their own power generation on their site. And if they end up generating surplus power, then they sell it back to the grid. So that may also be the model. At the moment, we haven't seen a need for us to establish a crown corporation like they do in every other jurisdiction in Canada. We're prepared to do that if we have to, if we cannot get enough base load. We've indicated that in the legislature. But we want to see the private market work. We do have crown corporations that operate in our market already. EPCOR is wholly owned by Edmonton. NMAX is wholly owned by Calgary, so it's not unusual to have government participate. It's just something we turned away from many, many years ago. So we would prefer for the private sector to do it.
Yeah, exactly. As the Premier said, that we would want the private market to engage in that. Now, there's many parts of our market, transmission, grid connection, distribution, and other ancillary services that the ISO, the Alberta Electric System Operator, could inject funds to make it more possible. But at this point, we're just engaging with Albertans to see what their questions, concerns are, and make sure that we bring them along in the process, and we have a large, broad agreement that we want to make this technology available within Alberta. And once that happens, then we can see how the best path forward to make that happen is, again, retaining our private competitive market for generation. Yeah.
Did you have a follow-up, Megan?
I do, yes, although it's not related to this. Again, this is, thank you for taking my question, by the way. This is, again, for the Premier. We just had that announcement of a public takeover bid for Meg Energy by Cenovus. It's continuing a bit of a theme of consolidation in the sector. I'm curious how you feel about the direction of that trend, Premier. What concerns or opportunities do you see, if that if that momentum continues?
Well, on the positive side, clearly, Meg was a very valuable asset because it was the subject of a bit of a bidding war, it sounds like. So I'll wait for the shareholders to see how all of that plays out. But it's been under review for some time. So clearly, there's some advantages that two different companies see, and being able to add that to their roster, which is very positive. Anytime, when there are consolidations, you don't need to have two senior executive teams, you don't need to have two accounting teams, you don't need to have two HR teams. So what I always worry about is job losses, and so I'll be watching to see what happens here. That being said, we're also looking for ways to work with our oil sands companies, and Cenovus is one in the Pathways Partnership, to build a new bitumen pipeline so that we can increase production. And so if we're increasing production, it should be able to offset some of those job losses. But I'm very bullish on the energy sector in Alberta, and in particular, our oil sands. I've set out a target a few years ago of doubling our oil and gas production. And just with incremental improvements and some of the incremental investments that I'm seeing and some of the capacity improvements, we're going to get pretty close to getting there by 2035.
Thanks. We have time for a couple more questions. We're going to take one more from the phones, and then we're going to try and come back here to the room. Operator, could you put through our next caller, please?
Yes, the next one is from Rahim Mohammed from Post Media. Your line is now open.
Sure. Hello, this question is for the Premier. So, Premier, 2025 is slipping away from us quite rapidly. You've told Albertans that they can expect a referendum next year. Are you able to say at this point definitively that the referendum will take place on a standalone ballot and won't be tacked on to a snapped provincial election or take place simultaneously with a snap provincial election?
Well, what I have said is that we have a series of referendum questions that we as a government might put to the people. That's what I'm advocating on right now and consulting on through our Alberta Next panel. If there's a citizen-initiated referenda that gets enough petition signatures, that would be added to that ballot. And so far, I don't know what the progress is of the one that is out there, but we're not putting forward a question on the issue of independence. We're putting forward questions on how we can be a bit more like Quebec. Should we collect our own taxes? Should we have more control over our own immigration system? Should we put the question of an Alberta pension plan to the people? Those are the kind of things that we're consulting on right now.
Follow-up. So I'm not sure I was clear in articulating my question. Last time around, there was a referendum that happened simultaneous, I believe, with Alberta's civic elections in 2021. Is there a scenario where next year we could see a referendum happening at the same time as a snap provincial election?
We would have a standalone referendum question, and whether it has one question on it or whether it has 10 questions on it, that's still to be seen. But we're targeting the spring for that question, for that ballot. And I have a mandate until October of 2027. So that's my intention, is to hold a general election in 2027.
Thanks, Rahim. And we just have time for one more question. We're going to come back to the mic in the room. Go ahead.
It's Stephanie Thomas from CTV Calgary. Question for Premier Smith. You've suggested the province would be looking at school board spending. Can you clarify that? And are you suggesting that education funds are being mismanaged by school boards?
Well, I'm just hearing what we're hearing from teachers. And one of the points that I made on the show this weekend is we know that we're spending about $12,000 to $14,000 per student on a classroom. If you have a classroom of 30 kids, you just do the math on that. That should be more than enough to have a teacher and an education assistant in every single classroom. And we don't. So I think it's worth us asking where the dollars are going. What we hear from teachers is great frustration that they have complexity in the classroom, and they may even have some aggressive kids in the classroom, and they don't have an extra hand on deck to be able to assist with those. So we're doing a consultation right now with teachers about what they would expect and hope to see from us. And it may be that we have to be a little bit more prescriptive about the circumstances when those complex classrooms need to have education supports. We've left it to this point to the school boards, but we're on the brink of a strike. And a lot of the issues at the heart of that is the management of the classroom, which we've delegated to school boards. So if we have to be a bit more hands-on, then we'll take a closer look at it. But I have already talked with my minister, Dimitrios Nicolaides, about asking some questions to get a little bit more granular detail about where the dollars are going. Yes.
And my follow-up, it's about Calgary Pride. It and similar societies are seeing a drop in corporate funding, and the assumption is that policies to roll back support for diversity, equity, and inclusion is to blame. So what do you think is at play, and what role do you think your government has had?
Well, I just saw Pride get cancelled in Ottawa because they didn't want to conflict with another event happening in support of Palestinians. So there's lots of reasons why people are making those choices. I can't really comment on what's happening in Calgary. We continue to support Pride. We continue to give dollars from our ministries to support not only Pride organizations in Calgary and Edmonton, but elsewhere, and also other initiatives. So I guess you'll have to ask the corporations what their views are.
Thank you, and that's all the time we have for questions today. Thanks everyone for joining us.